Okay, so time to make a sequel to my new high-end thermal paste comparison video which I recently made. So earlier this past summer I was watching thermal paste test videos on YouTube, and I came across one made by Techie City where he included the famous Chinese thermal paste called GD900 in his huge thermal paste comparison video. So those Chinese thermal pastes like the GD900, they are usually available in huge quantities with very low price. And even though that the GD900 doesn't really have very high thermal conductivity rating, it performed really well in his test. So I got a bit interested. As I often search for things on those Chinese websites, I wanted to see like how good thermal paste options could I actually find if I go very deep on those Chinese websites like Aliexpress, Taobao and similar. Like how good thermal paste options could I find no matter the cost? Well, based on paper values of course, so like thermal conductivity rating and so on. And I came across these two different thermal pastes you see on the table right now. This is of course just standard KPX, which I will use to compare those pastes against, and the KPX has been my favorite thermal paste for the last 3.5 years or so. But yeah, so these are the ones I came across, so I think we could go through them quickly. So the one on the right is called Snowman Mtg, and the number at the end just stands for the quantity size. So this is a 10-gram sized tube. The Snowman Mtg actually had very high listing price, so it wasn't cheap, but neither was this one over here. So the original listing price of the Snowman Mtg 10 was around $24 US. So that's actually a very expensive price considering what is the overall level of, on pricing when it comes to thermal pastes on Aliexpress. You can find tons of different thermal pastes from Aliexpress, for example, but they have very low thermal conductivity rating, like below 2 watts per meter Kelvin. And both of these pastes over here have a rating over 14 watts per meter Kelvin. But of course that doesn't matter at all if the real world performance is very bad. But let's give them a try. Let's see, let's test on our own end how well they perform on a on top of a 10900K. As I still have the system ready to go, which I used in that high-end thermal paste comparison video. But yeah, so the Snowman Mtg 10, it comes in 2-gram sized jar, a 5-gram sized tube, and the largest one is this 10-gram sized tube. I wanted to get the biggest one because the price difference was kind of small, and if this rocks, then I will have some excess thermal paste left to use. So net weight 10 grams. 14.3 watts per meter Kelvin. It's very high, like same as Cryonaut Extreme, but that's just what it what it is on paper. So yeah, high thermal conductivity, low thermal resistance, non-conductive as this is a conventional like silicone based thermal paste. Applicator is included, yep, and non-corrosive and easy to apply. When looking at the back, nothing really special. Working temperature -30 to 280, but I'm not fully sure do they even test that thing themselves, but not sure. And then just some application guide in Chinese. But yeah, looks quite good for a thermal paste from Aliexpress. Then the other one is Thermatic EX thermal compound. This is only 2 grams and it was quite expensive. Like the original price was a bit under $8 with, but not with shipping, and it was for sale for around like a bit under $6, but I had to pay over $5 for shipping. So the total price with shipping was around $11 US. For 2 grams, that is quite expensive. So just saying. Yeah, Thermatic ZF Extreme is designed for superb performance, maximize thermal conductivity. Yeah, okay. Then something else in Chinese. Thermal conductivity is 14.6 watts per meter Kelvin. Working temperature -160 up to +280. So yeah, let's see how those perform, but my bet is that they are worse than all of the pastes I tested in the previous one, so even worse than the GC Extreme. But let's see that ourselves. So I will open up the packagings and I will use the same setup plus settings on the 10800K. So 5.2 GHz on the CPU, 1.3 volts with same load line calibration setting, and just run Cinebench and Prime 95. Cinebench isn't that good though, because it's too short and it's hard to measure the accurate ambient room temperature. So when you run like something like Prime 95 for 30 minutes or longer, there's like enough time for the ambient room temperature to settle at a certain level, and then it's easier to make it's easier to measure the delta temperature. So the most interesting part will be the Prime 95 test. But yeah, so let's get going and see how these actually perform. Okay, so time for the actual results and then some kind of a conclusion about this funny experiment video. Now I wanted to make this video shorter than the previous high-end thermal paste comparison video, which featured the brand new Crown Extreme from Thermal Grizzly. So I just went straight to testing because the whole test rig was ready to go after making the results for the previous video. So the whole rig was completely identical as in that video. So same motherboard, same CPU at same frequency and voltage, and the whole situation was pretty much identical again. But now I only made one mount with these two Chinese thermal pastes. So with the Snowman Mtg and the Thermatic ZF-EX, because I don't have like too much interest in these high-end Chinese thermal pastes, because I'm fully sure I will not start using them for like full time. So I just wanted to see how they will do, like do a simple fast mount and see how they will do. So I just did one mount with both of those thermal pastes. I ran Cinebench R15 for 3 times, and then I just took the average delta temperature result of those 3 runs, and then I ran Prime 95 for 30 minutes, but only for 1 time. So I just took the delta temperature results and I added them to the same graph which you saw in my previous video, so we can compare the results of these Chinese thermal pastes to all of the thermal pastes we saw in the previous video, and we can look at the result screen right now. So this is the same delta temperature graph you saw in my previous video, but now these 2 thermal pastes are added as well. So the Snowman Mtg is the darker blue colored column in this graph, and the Thermatic ZF-EX is the red colored column. And if we look at the Cinebench R15 results first, we can see the Snowman scored 41.53 and the ZF-EX scored 41.43. So a very close call again. But both of them lost to all of the high-end thermal pastes I compared last time, but not by like large margin. So the difference to the winner of the R15 graph is only like 1.8 to 1.9 degrees worse, so not that big deal to be honest. And they managed to beat the failure GC Extreme 10 gram jar by a few degrees, so that is a good result in itself if you ask me. Now if we look at the Prime 95 results, the results are even more interesting. So the Snowman scored 46.4 and the Thermatic scored 45.7. They are very close. With the old tube of GC Extreme, the Snowman lost to the small tube of GC Extreme by 0.3 degrees. Of course, this was just one mount, so remember that. And with GC Extreme, I did 3 mounts, although with the old tube, I did only 1 mount as well. But when looking at these results, the Thermatic ZF-EX actually managed to beat the old tube of GC Extreme. So that's very interesting result. And the difference to the winner of the graph, so KPX, was only 0.9 degrees for the ZF-EX, and the Snowman lost to KPX by 1.6 degrees. So that's very good result if you ask me. So we can make like an overall conclusion that you can actually find relatively good stuff from those weird Chinese websites. But now, would I recommend you to buy these? That is probably no. Even if they have like small advantage when it comes to the actual pricing per gram, you can find slightly better stuff easily from a local store for nearly the same price. Thermal paste is something you don't want to save money on, because if you save some money on a thermal paste, like relatively small sum, you could lose a few degrees. And imagine if you spend like 50 to 100 euros or more to shave off like maybe 5 degrees or 5 to 10 degrees on your CPU temperatures. If you save some money on a thermal paste, you will lose a large part of that huge investment you made on the cooling solution. So I hope you get my idea. So never save money on a thermal paste. If you just build like one computer setup and you need thermal paste for 1 to 3 applications, it doesn't matter if the thermal paste, the small tube of thermal paste, costs you 5 euros or 15 euros. In the end, it's still relatively small sum. So if you want my honest opinion, get some of these known high-end thermal pastes and you are good to go, like KPX, Cryonaut or Cryonaut Extreme, or the GC Extreme, or something else that's proven to be good and it's easily available. Of course, based on these results, these would do quite well as well. But just saying, that's what I just wanted to stress. You can try these and they should work quite well as well. But it's still, it feels quite stupid to buy just the thermal paste from China. Now, if I had to choose like the winner of these two, it would be the Thermatic ZF-EX. The main difference between these two is that the Thermatic is very sticky thermal paste, so it has very high viscosity. It's very dry and it's very hard to spread or apply on top of the CPU's IHS. So it could have some potential for LN2 use, because if it's very dry and it has very high viscosity, it could be that it doesn't crack as easy as other thermal pastes that are very like runny and they are easy to spread. So, but that is just like my guess. I would have to test that separately. So if you buy either of these, you could maybe try the Thermatic one. The only minus of this thermal paste is the very small quantity. I couldn't find that thermal paste in any larger quantity than just that 2 gram size tube, and 2 grams is relatively small amount if you ask me, but otherwise it's quite good. Very close result to the KPX and Cryonaut and so on. And if you get like failure batch of some known thermal paste, that is not a good like end result either. Like what I saw with the 10 gram jar of GC Extreme, the end result with that was absolutely horrible. But yeah, so that's the overall conclusion with the high-end thermal pastes from China. I hope you like to see it. They did perform well, just like the GD900, which Techie City tested some time ago. But of course, the GD900 is very, very cheap thermal paste and it comes in huge quantity. So these are good, but the quantities are relatively small, especially with the Thermatic tube. But yeah, so if you like to see this video, then please give a thumbs up and subscribe to my video. And other than that, thanks for watching once again, and I will see you on the next one.